The hall erupted in applause as Beta Calendray lifted his goblet to the crowd, until the great doors burst open with a sound like thunder. Cold air swept through the chamber, snuffing candles and stealing every breath. All eyes turned. She stood there. Marin Vale, the Omega he once called a mistake of scent, draped in silver and midnight, her eyes calm, her power undeniable. At her side walked two boys, mirror images with gold and green eyes that burned beneath the moon's light. The crowd gasped. Even the chandeliers seemed to flicker in fear. Beta Dre, Marin's voice carried across the marble, soft yet sharp enough to cut. You invited me to your celebration. I thought I'd bring company. Callan's smile faltered. You shouldn't be here. On the contrary, she said, stepping forward. I belong everywhere the moon shines. The twins raised pendants marked with both Shadowfang and Silvercrest sigils. The hall fell silent. Then someone whispered, Alpha blood. Callan's goblet slipped from his hand, wine splashing like spilled blood. Impossible, he rasped. Marin smiled, slow, devastating, radiant. The moon never makes mistakes. Above them, the skylight flared with silver fire as the entire hall knelt under divine light. The woman he'd broken stood crowned in glory, her sons glowing beside her, living proof that rejection cannot rewrite fate. And as the Beta's world collapsed, she turned away, her whisper echoing through the silence. You tried to erase me, Callan, but I became the story. Chapter 1. Beneath the moonlight trials. The forest was alive with sound. Wolves howled from the ridges, their cries echoing through the night like hymns to the moon goddess. The celebration of the Beta trials had begun, and Silvercrest's sacred arena shimmered beneath the pale glow of a full moon. I stood at the edge of the clearing, heart pounding, palms trembling, watching Callan Dre move like lightning through the gauntlet. Every muscle in his body was sculpted with purpose, every strike of his claws precise, every roar an echo of dominance. He was winning, and I had helped him do it. Days before, I'd risked everything, gathering forbidden moonroot to heal his wounds after a fight gone wrong. The herb burned my hands, left marks that hadn't faded. But when he looked at me with those storm-gray eyes and whispered, You're my reason for breathing, Marin, I believed him. Maybe that was my mistake. As the final bell tolled and his name was shouted, Callan Dre, future Beta of Silvercrest. The crowd erupted in roars. I smiled through my nerves, clutching the pendant he'd given me. It was a shard of moonstone tied with a leather cord. He said it meant forever. When he turned toward me across the sea of wolves, our bond pulsed, a warm thread tugging between our souls. My wolf stirred inside me, soft and hopeful. He's ours, she whispered. But beneath that joy, something colder flickered in his gaze, something I didn't yet understand. Later that night, when the fires dimmed and the howls softened into laughter, Callan found me by the sacred pool. The reflection of the moon rippled across the water like liquid silver. You did it, I said softly. You're Beta now. He stepped closer, his breath brushing my cheek. No, we did it. His fingers traced the pendant around my neck. Once I'm sworn in, I'll tell them. About us. About the bond. My heart fluttered. You mean it? Of course. His voice dropped lower, intimate. You think I could ever belong to anyone but you? And in that moment, beneath the moonlight, with the scent of pine and promise thick in the air, I believed him. But even then, the goddess must have been watching. Silent, knowing what came next. Chapter 2. The Promise and the Lie. Morning came with golden light and uneasy whispers. The pack buzzed with preparations for the moon festival, where Callan would take his oath before the Alpha. Every wolf of Silvercrest would be there. Every pair of eyes. Every judge of worth. I followed him through the training fields, tending his cuts, straightening his ceremonial cloak. His hands lingered on mine longer than necessary. "You'll stand near the front, won't you? I want you to see everything." I smiled, though my stomach twisted. Of course. Truth be told, I felt the unease growing like frost. For days, the Alpha's daughter, Lyra Vale, had watched us, her gaze sharp, her lips curling in something close to jealousy. She came from old blood, noble blood, the kind that looked at Omegas like me as tools, not equals. Still, Callan told me not to worry. He promised that after his title was confirmed, he'd make our bond public. "You'll be mine under the moon, Marin. Let them talk. I'll silence them all." Maybe it was the way his tone trembled that morning, or the way he couldn't quite meet my eyes, that made my wolf stir uneasily. By dusk, the Silver Crest courtyard glittered with torches. Music drifted like smoke through the air. The Alpha stood tall on the stone dais, the crest of the pack gleaming on his armor. Callan knelt before him, head bowed as the oath began. "Do you, Callan Dre, swear loyalty to the Alpha, to Silvercrest, and to the moon above all?" "I do." "Do you swear to protect your pack, even if it costs you your mate, your life, your soul?" The words struck me like a blow. "Your mate." He hesitated, just for a moment. His eyes flicked toward me in the crowd, and for a heartbeat, the bond pulsed between us, aching and alive. Then he looked away. "I swear it," he said. The crowd roared again, chanting his name. "Beta Dre! Beta Dre!" But something in my chest went cold. Because of that one pause, that one glance, that one lie. When the feast began, Lyra approached him, smiling too sweetly. She placed a silver cup in his hand and whispered something I couldn't hear. He laughed, and in that laugh I heard my world begin to break. Chapter 3. The public rejection night fell heavy and bright. The moon hung high, a witness carved in silver light. I stood among the crowd, breath trembling, waiting for him to fulfill his promise, waiting for him to claim me. Callan stood beside the Alpha on the dais, his voice strong, his smile sharp as a blade. The Alpha raised his hand. "Tonight, our Beta chooses his mate, the bond that will strengthen Silvercrest for generations." Whispers rippled through the crowd. My heart thundered. This was it. Callan turned slowly, his eyes sweeping across the sea of faces, then landing on me. For a moment, I saw the man I loved, the one who whispered vows beside the sacred pool, the one who said I was his reason for breathing. But then, his expression shifted, cold, detached, calculating. "I, Callan Dre," he began, "reject the false bond that has clouded my path." The words froze the air. "I reject Marin Hale," he said louder, each syllable slicing deeper, "and the illusion of fate that binds her to me. The moon goddess does not make mistakes, but I did." Gasps erupted. The Alpha's daughter covered her mouth, feigning shock. Wolves turned toward me, their eyes gleaming with pity or amusement. "No!" The word tore from me. "Callan, please!" He didn't look at me. An Omega healer cannot stand beside a Beta. The pack needs strength, not sentiment. My wolf howled inside me, a sound of breaking glass. Pain shot through my veins, searing every nerve as the mate bond shattered. The moonstone pendant burned hot against my skin, then cracked in two. The world blurred. I dropped to my knees. The pack laughed, whispered, stared. Somewhere in the distance I heard Lyra's voice, sweet and venomous. Perhaps the goddess favors ambition, not weakness. I tried to stand, but my legs failed. My vision swam with tears. Callan turned away, bowing to the Alpha as if nothing had happened. The crowd erupted in cheers. In that moment, something inside me died, and something else was born. A silence deeper than grief. A promise forged in pain. I remember the wind shifting, carrying my scent away as if erasing me from this place. And just like that, I understood the truth. The moon doesn't always bless. It also burns. Chapter 4. The shattered bond. The night after the rejection felt endless. Every breath I took tasted like ash, every heartbeat a jagged echo inside an empty chest. The bond's destruction wasn't a clean break. It was a tearing, a howl that never stopped. By the time dawn painted the sky red, I'd lost count of how many tears had dried on my cheeks. The packed ground still hummed with celebration behind me. They toasted his name. They sang his praises. And my name. My name had become a curse whispered between drunken laughs. "Did you see her face?" Someone snickered near the barracks. The poor Omega thought she mattered. Their laughter followed me like hounds. I clutched my satchel tighter, stuffing what little I owned inside. A threadbare cloak, a cracked pendant, a single loaf of bread. That was all my life amounted to now. As I crossed the courtyard, a child pointed. "Mama, is that the healer who angered the moon?" Her mother shushed her, pulling her close. My stomach twisted. The moon never made a mistake, I wanted to shout, but my throat refused to work. By the time I reached the gates, the guards looked away. No one dared stop me, though their silence felt heavier than chains. Behind me, the Silvercrest banners fluttered, gold wolves on crimson silk, proud and merciless. And then the gates closed with a groan that sounded far too final. The wind bit through my cloak. Frost stung my cheeks. Yet even through the numbness, I felt it. A faint throb where the mate bond had once burned. A phantom ache. My wolf whimpered, small and broken. "He was never ours," I whispered into the dawn. "He only borrowed our heart." From there, I walked. Not toward anywhere. Just away. Away from pity. Away from humiliation. Away from the man who had called me a mistake. Maybe it was fate, or maybe just exhaustion. But by the time the sun climbed above the pines, I'd reached the wild border, where Silvercrest's cultivated land gave way to the feral sprawl of Wraith Forest. They said no wolf returned from it. That shadows moved without wind. That the goddess herself forgot the names of those who entered. Still, even death felt kinder than home. I took one last look at the world I'd loved and stepped into the mist. Chapter 5. Through the Wraith Forest. The forest greeted me like a grave. Every tree was blackened, every breath filled with rot and moss. The air pressed down, thick with silence. Only the crunch of my boots and the faint rasp of my breathing dared disturb it. Hours passed, or maybe days. I'd stopped keeping count. Hunger gnawed at me, but worse was the cold. It crept beneath my skin until my fingers turned pale blue. Each time I stumbled, I heard echoes. Faint laughter, whispers of Silvercrest wolves haunting my memory. Unfit for a leader. A mistake of scent. Their voices blurred with the rustle of leaves, until I couldn't tell which belonged to ghosts and which to guilt. The deeper I went, the stranger the air became. Shadows moved like living things. Once I caught the glint of eyes between the trees, too low for wolves, too bright for men. "Stay back," I warned, though my voice trembled. My claws itched beneath my skin, but the shift wouldn't come. My wolf was too weak, still reeling from the broken bond. Eventually, exhaustion dragged me to my knees beside a half-frozen stream. I dipped my hands into the water. It burned like ice. My reflection stared back, pale, hollow, unrecognizable. Truth be told, I didn't know who I was without him. And yet, somewhere deep inside, a spark remained. A stubborn flicker that refused to die. That night, I built a small fire from fallen branches. The flames crackled weakly, painting the mist in trembling gold. I pressed my pendant's broken halves together, whispering a prayer. If the moon still sees me, please, show me why I'm still breathing. The wind answered with a sound that was not quite a whisper, not quite a growl. My pulse quickened. I turned toward the darkness and froze. Something massive moved between the trees. Chapter 6. The Fallen Wolf. At first, I thought it was a trick of the mist, a shape conjured by exhaustion. But then the ground trembled, and the scent hit me. Iron, blood, alpha blood. The creature staggered into the clearing, moonlight spilling over fur as white as bone. Arrows jutted from its flank, dark with blood. Each breath it took rattled the air. My instincts screamed run. But I didn't. Instead, my feet moved toward it, as if the moon herself pulled me by invisible threads. The wolf collapsed with a heavy thud, eyes half closed, breath shallow. I knelt beside it. Easy. Easy now. My voice came out soft, barely a whisper. The scent of his blood flooded my senses, sharp, ancient, powerful. Whoever he wasn't an ordinary alpha. One of the arrows pulsed faintly with dark runes, poisoned. My healer's instincts took over. I pressed my hand against the wound, channeling what little energy I had left. Warmth spread from my palm, light seeping into torn flesh. "Hold on," I murmured. "Don't you dare die here." For a heartbeat, I thought it was pointless. Then the wolf's golden eyes flicked open, bright, feral, intelligent. They met mine, and something inside me shifted. The world narrowed to that gaze, pain, strength, recognition. As the wind shifted, his scent tangled with mine, cedar and storm. My heart skipped. My wolf, long silent, stirred. "Mate," she breathed. "No," I whispered, shaking my head. "That's impossible." But the bond, faint, fragile, new, pulsed anyway. Before I could make sense of it, the wolf shuddered, muscles rippling. Light spilled across his body, and with a low growl, he shifted. Where the beast had fallen now knelt a man. Tall, broad-shouldered, his skin streaked with blood and moonlight. His eyes met mine again, burning with something primal. "Who are you?" he rasped. I swallowed hard, torn between fear and awe. "Myron," I whispered. "Just Myron." He looked at the glowing mark on my wrist, the remnants of my broken bond still faintly shimmering. His expression darkened. "Silvercrest." I flinched. Not anymore. A muscle ticked in his jaw. He studied me for a long moment before his body swayed, strength leaving him. I caught him before he hit the ground. His weight nearly crushed me, but I refused to let go. "Stay with me," I begged. "Please." No answer, only shallow breaths. The firelight flickered, painting his face in gold. Even half-conscious, he looked dangerous, wild, like the forest itself had shaped him. Without thinking, I tore the sleeve from my cloak and pressed it to his wound, praying it would be enough until morning. The night stretched on, filled with the sound of his breathing and the pounding of my own heart, and in the quiet that followed, I felt it again, that impossible pull. Maybe it was madness, maybe it was fate, but deep down, I knew the truth. The moon wasn't done with me yet. Chapter 7, The Stranger's Eyes. The first sound that broke the silence was his breathing, ragged, uneven, animal. The second was the flutter of my heartbeat, too loud, too human. I had stayed awake all night, watching him. Every time he moved, the firelight caught on the curve of his jaw, on the sharp angle of his collarbone, on scars that looked carved by war itself. He wasn't just strong, he was ancient. The kind of power that made the air around him hum. When dawn crept through the trees, I dared to whisper, "Can you hear me?" For a moment, nothing. Then his hand shot out, lightning fast, fingers locking around my wrist. I gasped. His grip was strong enough to bruise, but his skin burned cold. Our eyes met, gold to green, alpha to healer. And in that instant, the world shifted. The forest went quiet, as if even the wind was holding its breath. His gaze pierced straight through me, not with cruelty, but recognition. It was impossible, and yet I felt it, a thread pulling taut between us. "Who sent you?" His voice was a growl, low and rough, as if unused to softness. "No one," I managed. "I found you bleeding. You were dying." His grip tightened. Silvercrest. I left them, I said quickly. I'm no one's anymore. He studied me for a long time. Then, as if something inside him relented, he released my wrist and slumped back. I rubbed the tender skin, my heart still racing. You should rest. He turned his head, eyes half-lidded. You healed me. Why? Because it's what I do. My voice trembled, but I met his stare. Because even monsters deserve to live if the moon still lets them breathe. Something flickered in his expression, a ghost of surprise, or maybe respect. He didn't speak again, but the silence that followed wasn't hostile. It was heavy, charged. I told myself it was exhaustion when my pulse refused to calm, that the warmth in my chest was leftover pain from rejection, not something new. But deep down, I already knew. This was something the bond could never imitate. This was the beginning of something ancient, something the moon had rewritten just for us. Chapter 8. Shelter of Shadows. By the time night returned, the forest was alive with danger. The scent of rogues drifted between the trees, sharp, feral, hungry. They were hunting, and I had a half-dead alpha in my care. Can you walk? I whispered. Orion. I had learned his name when fever dreams had stolen his voice, looked up at me through half-closed eyes. If I have to. Then we move. We stumbled through the dark, the forest twisting around us like a maze. Every sound made my skin prickle. Snapping twigs, distant howls, the whisper of claws on stone. The rogues were closing in. At last, through the veil of mist, I saw the outline of a structure. A crumbling temple swallowed by vines and time. Its pillars leaned like weary sentinels, the roof half gone. This way, I said, half dragging him inside. The air inside was cold, but it was shelter. Faded runes glowed faintly on the floor, remnants of some ancient magic. I eased him onto a broken altar and pressed my hands to his wounds. The poison fought me, dark veins pulsing beneath his skin. But I didn't stop. My energy poured out like water through a crack. Stop, he rasped. You'll drain yourself. I've lost enough already, I whispered. I'm not losing you too. His eyes flared gold again, not in anger this time, but in something close to awe. You don't even know who I am. Maybe not, I said softly, but the moon does. The forest outside howled. The rogues had caught our scent. I rose to my feet, clutching a dagger I'd stolen from Silvercrest's armory. You can't fight them, he warned. Watch me. As the first shadow crossed the threshold, I moved. Instinct guided me, not power, not training, just raw will. I slashed, ducked, shoved the blade through the creature's chest. It fell, snarling. Another lunged. I barely dodged its claws. And then, before I could strike again, Orion was there. He moved like lightning. Even injured, his strength was terrifying. His claws tore through the rogues in a blur of motion. The temple shook with the sound of growls and breaking stone. When the last one fell, I realized I was shaking. Blood spattered the altar. The air reeked of iron and ash. Orion turned toward me, chest heaving. You shouldn't have stayed. Neither should you, I shot back, voice trembling. He stared at me for a long time. Then, slowly, a faint smile curved his lips. You're reckless. Maybe, I said, but I'm alive. Something in his gaze softened. Because of you, so am I. And just like that, the tension broke. I laughed, breathless, half in disbelief. He chuckled too, low and rough, a sound that made my pulse stutter. We sat together in the ruins while the fire burned low. He told me fragments of his story, how betrayal had nearly cost him his pack, how he'd been ambushed by those he trusted. I told him nothing of my own, only that I'd lost everything once too. Between us, the silence grew warm instead of cold. As the night deepened, the moonlight slipped through the cracks in the ceiling and brushed his face, and for the first time in weeks, I felt safe. Maybe it was fate, or maybe it was mercy. Either way, I wasn't alone anymore. Chapter 9. The Second Mark. That night, sleep came fitfully. Dreams of silver light and wild forests tangled in my mind, whispering of things not yet written. When I woke, the air felt different. Heavy, charged, alive. Orion stood outside the temple, bare-chested, his wounds nearly gone. The dawn painted his skin in gold and frost. I watched him from the shadows, my heartbeat a traitor in my chest. He turned, as if he'd sensed me, and our eyes met again. Something stirred in the air between us. A hum, a pulse, a call I couldn't ignore. "What's happening?" I breathed. He didn't answer. He only stepped closer, each movement deliberate, magnetic. When he reached me, his hand lifted, fingers brushing the broken halves of my pendant. "It wasn't him," he said quietly. "The one who rejected you. The bond you felt. It wasn't real. The moon only marks once." I froze. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying..." His voice dropped, raw and certain. "She's chosen again." Before I could speak, before either of us could breathe, the light hit us. It poured through the cracks in the ceiling, silver and alive, wrapping around us both. My body trembled as warmth flooded my veins. The mark on my wrist flared. Not the broken scar of rejection, but a new, burning sigil, the symbol of the moon's blessing. I gasped as Orion cupped my face, his forehead pressing against mine. Our wolves howled together in the unseen realm, not in sorrow, but in awakening. "Orion," I whispered, voice trembling. His thumb brushed a tear from my cheek. "You don't have to run anymore." And in that moment, beneath the ruins, beneath the moonlight, beneath the weight of every heartbreak I'd ever known, I realized the truth. I hadn't lost everything. I had been led here. To him. To this. To the bond the moon had written before I was ever born. When our lips met, it wasn't fire or fury. It was recognition. The kind that set the soul alight. And somewhere in the distance, the forest sighed. The wind carried a whisper I would never forget. The moon never makes mistakes. Chapter 10. Luna of Shadowfang. When the gates of Shadowfang rose before me, I expected hostility. What I found was silence, tense, watchful, alive. Wolves lined the mountain pass, their armor dark as the cliffs they guarded. Above them loomed the fortress, carved straight from obsidian, its towers catching the dying light like daggers. My heart hammered. I could feel their judgment before a single word was spoken. To them, I was an outsider. A lowborn Omega who dared to stand beside their alpha. Orion's hand brushed mine, a brief, grounding touch that spoke louder than any vow. "They will see what I see," he murmured. "Or what you want them to," I whispered back. He smiled faintly. "It's the same thing." The gates creaked open, revealing a courtyard ringed with fire. Every wolf knelt as we passed, their heads bowed, not in warmth, but respect laced with fear. At the far end, the elder council waited. Their leader, an ancient she-wolf named Era, stepped forward. Her silver hair gleamed in the firelight, her eyes sharp as glass. "An Omega from Silvercrest?" she asked, her voice steady but cold. "Brought into our halls as Luna?" "Yes," Orion said simply. The murmurs rippled like thunder. Era's gaze shifted to me. "You healed our alpha. You saved his life. That is honor enough. But a Luna's crown is no gift. It is earned by the Pack's faith." I met her eyes. "Then let me earn it." The courtyard went still. Even Orion's breath caught. I stepped forward, kneeling before the altar stone. "If the moon called me here, then she will prove it." Era tilted her head, curious. "How?" "By light," I said softly. Without waiting, I lifted my palm. The mark on my wrist began to glow, silver and strong. The The same light flared on Orion's chest, where the moon's sigil rested over his heart. The air hummed, a low, divine chord, until even the most skeptical wolves lowered their heads. Era bowed first. Then it is the moon's will. One by one, the pack followed. Knees touched the ground, voices murmuring in unison. Luna of Shadowfang. My throat tightened. I'd once been cast out by laughter. Now I was crowned by silence. As the fires roared higher, Orion's hand found mine again. You walked into our world alone, he said quietly. Now you walk as its heart. Maybe it was fate. Maybe it was the moon's way of reminding me that broken things could still shine. Chapter 11. The Twins of the Moon. The months that followed felt like a dream stitched together by hope. For the first time in my life, I was not afraid to belong. Shadowfang was a land of contradictions, brutal and beautiful, cold yet fiercely loyal. Its wolves lived by strength, but they cherished truth above power. And so, though whispers followed me, they never touched me with scorn. Orion's presence made sure of that. He was everywhere, in every council, every training field, every night spent beside me beneath the carved stone ceiling of our chamber. His warmth was a constant, steady as the beat of his heart beneath my cheek. But the moon had other plans. One morning, as the first snow fell, I felt the shift, a faint flutter beneath my ribs, a heartbeat that wasn't mine. Then another. I wept before I even told him. When Orion heard, he went still. Shock first, then wonder, then a reverent smile that melted even the mountain air. Twins, he whispered, his palm splayed across my stomach. The moon doubles what she blesses. He wanted to tell the world. I begged him not to. Not yet, I said. Let them be safe a little longer. So the pregnancy became our secret. Era alone knew, tending me with herbs and quiet wisdom. 2 hearts, she said one night, her eyes glinting. 2 paths, one born of peace, one of fire. The moon plays a long game, Luna. When the lunar eclipse came, I felt the first pain. The fortress was silent. All of Shadowfang gathered in prayer, unaware that their Luna bled in the sacred chamber. Orion never left my side. His hand was my anchor, his voice the thread between worlds. Hours passed. The moon turned crimson, and then 2 cries pierced the night. Twins, 2 sons, one with eyes like mine, soft green, the other with eyes of pure alpha gold. On their wrists shimmered twin marks, one the sigil of Shadowfang, the other the faded crest of Silvercrest. I held them close, tears streaming down my face. The world will not understand you, I whispered, but the moon will. Orion kissed my brow. They are proof of what they all fear, that peace is possible. He was right. Because of that, I also knew. Peace would never come easily. Chapter 12. Whispers of War. Peace never lasts long in a world built on pride. By the time the twins could walk, rumors had already crossed the borders. Silvercrest's spies spoke of a rogue healer who had bewitched an alpha, using witchcraft to bear his heirs. Callan's lies, no doubt. His words were spreading like rot, poisoning even neutral packs. One morning, Orion threw a crumpled scroll across the council table. He calls you a traitor, he snarled. Says you seduced me to unite the packs through deceit. I stared at the parchment, the wax seal of Silvercrest still fresh. Let him talk. He slammed his palm on the table. You think I'll let him insult my Luna? Insults are wind, I said quietly. Let the moon decide which truth stands. His anger softened into something else. Fear. They won't stop at words, Marin. He knows what you mean to me. He'll use it. Then let him try, I said, though my heart ached. The moon brought me this far. She won't let me fall now. Still, that night, when the fires dimmed and the children slept between us, I lay awake. The scent of smoke and pine clung to my skin. I traced the marks on their tiny wrists, one from each pack, 2 paths, 1 piece. And yet, in the wind outside, I swore I could hear Callan's name whispered by shadows. The moonlight spilled through the window, bathing us all in silver. Orion stirred beside me, sensing my unease. "You're thinking again." "I'm remembering," I murmured. "How I once thought rejection was the end of me." He brushed a strand of hair from my face. "It was the beginning." His words sank into me like warmth against frost. Still, deep down I felt it, a shift, the calm before the storm. The world was stirring, and the moon, she was watching. Chapter 13. The Invitation. The morning it arrived, the mountain was wrapped in fog, a warning the moon herself seemed to whisper. The messenger came trembling through the courtyard, holding a scroll bound in gold and red wax. Silvercrest's colors. My pulse faltered the moment I saw the crest. Years had passed, yet the sight of it still burned. I took the letter with steady hands. Orion's scent lingered behind me, cedar, steel, and concern. He said nothing as I broke the seal. The words were carved with arrogance. "To Luna Marin of Shadowfang, you are cordially invited to the mating ceremony of Beta Callan Dre and Lady Lyra of Silvercrest. The union shall be blessed by the moon and witnessed by all the great packs." And at the bottom, in his hand, that same sharp, confident script I once loved, a single line. "It would please me if you attended, to show there is no ill blood between us." My fingers trembled. No ill blood? He had shattered my bond, stripped me of my name, sent me into exile. And now he wanted me to stand in the crowd and smile while he claimed another? I laughed, soft, bitter, disbelieving. "He wants peace," I murmured, "but only if it's on his stage." Orion's growl was immediate. "You will not go." His tone carried the weight of command, alpha power that could make even the air bow. Yet beneath it, I heard something else. Fear. "He plans to humiliate you again," he said. "This letter is poison wrapped in gold." "Maybe," I whispered, tracing the wax seal. "Or maybe it's the moon's call." He stepped closer, his hand on my shoulder. "You owe him nothing." "I owe myself closure." For a moment, neither of us breathed. Then Orion exhaled, low and resigned. "If you go, I go." I met his gaze, gold and fire, protective and unyielding. "No," I said softly. "This is a ghost I must face alone." Even so, I knew he would never truly let me walk into the lion's den without his shadow near. By the time the fog lifted, the decision was already carved into fate. Chapter 14. The Debate of Wolves. The council chamber crackled with tension. Ira's voice, sharp as flint, cut through the air. "You would walk into Silvercrest, into the den of the wolf who damned you?" "I would walk into my past," I said evenly, "and show it cannot touch me anymore." The elders murmured among themselves. Some called it bravery, others called it madness. Orion stood at the head of the table, his jaw set. "This is not a simple gathering," he warned. "Callan will have planned every word, every whisper. He wants to drag your name back through the mud." "Then let him try," I said. His eyes blazed. "You think I can watch you be mocked again?" I rose from my seat, stepping closer until the space between us hummed with power and pain. "You won't be watching, you'll be waiting. And when I return, the world will see who truly kneels before the moon." The room fell silent. Even the torches seemed to flicker with awe. Era smiled faintly. "You sound more like a queen than a Luna." "Queens are crowned by men," I said. "Lunas are chosen by the moon." Later, when the chamber emptied, Orion cornered me by the balcony. The night wind tangled my hair, carrying the scent of pine and frost. "Say it plainly," he murmured. "You still hate him." "Maybe once," I admitted, "but hate ties you to what broke you. I cut that chain a long time ago." He brushed his fingers against my jaw, tracing the mark beneath my skin. Then promise me one thing. What? That you'll come back to me? The way he said it, soft, fierce, raw, made my chest ache. Always, I whispered. I'll walk with the moon at my back. He leaned forward, his lips brushing my temple. And with my shadow guarding your steps. That night, as I prepared for the journey, I caught my reflection in the mirror. The same face that once wept in Silvercrest Square, now framed by a luna's crown of silver and moonstone. The girl they broke was gone. The woman who would return was legend waiting to be written. Chapter 15. Return to Silvercrest. Dawn bled across the horizon as we rode from Shadowfang. The road wound like a scar between frozen peaks, the mist curling around the hooves of our horses. Behind me trailed the guards, silent, deadly, loyal. But beside me rode my sons, now 12 and proud, their eyes gleaming with twin light, one gold, one green. They didn't yet know why I brought them. Only that destiny called us toward a place I had sworn never to see again. The closer we came to Silvercrest, the stronger the scent of its forest grew, pine, smoke, and iron. Memories followed. Laughter turned to scorn, vows turned to lies. At the border, I dismounted. The wind was colder here, the ground too familiar. My fingers brushed the scar on my wrist, the mark of rejection long since burned away by the moon's blessing. Mother? My eldest asked. Are you afraid? I smiled faintly. No, love. Just remembering what fear used to feel like. We entered the territory beneath the rising sun. Wolves stopped their work to stare. Some bowed, confused by the royal sigil on our banners. Others whispered my name as if speaking to a ghost. The guards at the gate hesitated. Recognition flickered in their eyes. You, one stammered. You're Luna Marinvale of Shadowfang, I said. Announce me. They scrambled to obey. The courtyard filled with murmurs as I walked forward, draped in a gown of silver and midnight, its hem embroidered with the twin sigils of both packs. The twins flanked me like moonlit mirrors, their presence commanding even among warriors. And above it all, the banners of Silvercrest fluttered, the same gold and crimson I had once fled under a blood-red dawn. The sound of music drifted from the great hall, laughter, crystal, lies wrapped in celebration. My heart beat steady, calm. Each step echoed like prophecy. At the threshold, I paused. For one fleeting moment, I smelled him, Callan. Same cologne, same arrogance, sweetened now with false triumph. Ready? My younger son asked. I smiled. More than ever. The guards pushed open the doors. Light and noise burst outward. Gasps followed as faces turned toward us, nobles, warriors, even alphas. And at the far end of the grand hall, beneath chandeliers carved with moonstone, stood Callan Dre, resplendent in gold, his arm around Lyra, the alpha's daughter. The music faltered. His smile did too. Because the woman he'd once called a mistake of scent now stood before him in silver light. Not broken, not begging, but burning with the calm fire of destiny fulfilled. And beside her, the two sons whose eyes gleamed with the power of alphas. Whispers rippled through the hall. Someone dropped a goblet. I stepped forward, every movement deliberate, graceful, lethal. Beta Callan, I said softly, my voice carrying like a blade through still air. You invited me. He froze, and just like that, the balance of power shifted. Chapter 16. The Beta's Triumph. The grand hall shimmered with decadence, chandeliers dripping in crystal, banners painted in blood and gold, and laughter that rang too loud, too false. Silvercrest had always worshipped appearances, and tonight was its altar. At the center of it all stood Callan Dre, the wolf who once called me a mistake, now bathed in the applause of his peers. He looked every inch the perfect beta, tall, regal, with eyes that could charm and cut in equal measure. His smile glittered like the wine in his goblet, hollow and sharp-edged. "Loyalty," he declared to the assembled wolves, raising his glass. "That is the foundation of any pack, of any bond. And tonight," his gaze swept the crowd, "we celebrate the bond that unites Silvercrest and the Alpha's bloodline." Cheers erupted. Applause thundered through the hall. He basked in it like sunlight, but beneath the surface I could see the cracks, because the moon above burned too brightly. Through the high windows, its glow fell like silver fire, painting every surface in unnatural light. The air shimmered, restless, alive. Even the guests began to murmur. "Strange night for a ceremony," someone whispered. "The moon's never shone like that before." Lyra, his bride, clung to his arm, radiant in her golden gown. Yet her smile was stiff, uncertain. "Callan," she murmured, "why is everyone looking up?" He brushed her concern away with that same arrogant ease I remembered. "Because the moon favors us tonight," he said. But I could see it, the faint tremor in his jaw. The moon wasn't favoring him. She was waiting. Chapter 17. The doors open. It happened at the height of the music. The violins soared, the crowd raised their glasses, and then the great doors burst open. The sound silenced everything. Laughter, music, even breath. Cold air swept in from the courtyard, carrying the scent of pine and smoke. And there I stood, draped in silver and midnight, the Luna crest of Shadowfang gleaming at my throat. My sons flanked me, twin mirrors of strength and calm, their eyes glinting under the moonlight, one green like mine, the other gold like Orion's. The guards who'd once turned me away now stumbled backward, heads bowing instinctively. I stepped across the threshold. My heels clicked against marble like a heartbeat echoing through eternity. Gasps rippled across the hall. Whispers followed like a rising tide. "Is that the rejected one? Impossible." At the far end, Callan froze. The color drained from his face, replaced by disbelief, then something uglier, fear. "Luna Marin Vale of Shadowfang," I said, my voice steady and low, carrying to every corner. "You invited me, Beta Callan, so I came." Lyra's hand slipped from his arm. "Who is she?" he stammered. "No one. A former acquaintance." I smiled, slow, sharp, deliberate. "Is that what we're calling mates these days?" The crowd gasped. Lyra recoiled. "Mates?" Callan's facade cracked, desperation flickering in his eyes. "That was years ago." "Yes," I interrupted, my tone silken but lethal. "Years ago, when you stood beneath this same moon and rejected me before your pack. You called me a mistake of scent. You used me to climb your way here." Every eye turned toward him. Even the Alpha of Silvercrest shifted uneasily on his throne. "And yet," I continued, taking another step forward, "the moon does not make mistakes." My twins moved beside me, each raising a pendant, one engraved with the Shadowfang crest, the other with the moon's sigil intertwined with silver crests. The room seemed to glow brighter. The whispers became shouts. "Those boys, they bear the mark of both bloodlines! Impossible!" Callan's breath hitched. "You dare bring bastards into my hall?" "Bastards?" My voice sliced through his words like frost. "These are the sons of Alpha Orion Vale, my true fated mate, born beneath the moon's blessing." The moonlight flared, spilling across the hall until even the chandeliers dimmed. Every wolf in the room dropped to one knee, not by choice, but by instinct. The moon was speaking, through me. Chapter 18. The Revelation. It was no longer my voice that filled the hall. It was something older, colder, the sound of truth made flesh. "The bond you broke was never yours to claim," I said, my eyes locked on Callan. "You twisted the moon's gift for ambition. You turned love into currency. You called loyalty a leash." He stumbled backward, sweat beating at his temple. I only did what was necessary for the pack. For yourself, I corrected. You used me to climb the ladder of power, and in doing so, you cursed your own bloodline. A howl echoed from outside, deep, resonant, commanding. The doors opened again. Orion stepped inside. The room erupted into chaos. Alphas rose to their feet. Guards drew weapons. But no one moved when he spoke. Sit, he commanded. His voice rolled through the hall like thunder. Every wolf obeyed. He crossed the floor, his gaze fixed on Callan. You once tried to destroy her. You nearly killed me with your treachery. And yet here she stands. My Luna, my salvation. Orion's hand brushed mine, a gesture small, yet devastatingly intimate. The moon has already judged you, Callan, he said. But your pack deserves to see what justice looks like. A beam of light broke through the skylight, pure, blinding silver. It struck the floor between us, forming the moon's sigil. Callan fell to his knees, trembling. Please. I thought she was unworthy. And yet she stands above you, I said quietly. Because worth is not granted by title. It's revealed by truth. Lyra turned away from him, tears streaking her painted face. You lied to me, she whispered. You lied to all of us. The hall erupted with murmurs, betrayal, disgust, disbelief. The Alpha of Silvercrest rose. Beta Callan, he said coldly. You are stripped of rank and honor. The moon's will has spoken. Callan's sobs broke the silence. I looked down at him, not with hatred, but something deeper. Pity. The bond you broke will haunt you, I whispered. Not because you lost me, but because you never deserved me. When I turned away, the moonlight followed. My sons stepped beside me, their small hands finding mine. And for the first time since my rejection, the moon above Silvercrest shone not with fury, but with peace. Chapter 19. The Council's Judgment. The hall no longer glittered. The chandeliers dimmed, and the gilded banners that once screamed triumph now hung heavy, lifeless, under the moon's cold stare. Callan knelt in the center of it all, stripped of his confidence, his voice, his dignity. His golden coat of honor was torn from his shoulders, lying crumpled beside him like the corpse of a life he'd stolen. Around him, the Council of Alphas gathered, the great leaders of the Northern Territories seated in a crescent beneath the moon's sigil. Their gazes burned hotter than the torches. Alpha Orion stood beside me, his presence a wall of calm fury. I felt the faint tremor of his restraint through our bond. He would have torn Callan apart if not for the ritual that demanded judgment through word, not claw. The presiding voice of the council, Alpha Theron of Silvercrest, Lyra's father, rose above the murmurs. Beta Callan, he began. You stand accused of betraying not only your Luna's sacred bond, but the will of the moon herself. Your ambition has brought shame upon our kind. Callan's voice cracked. I did it for the pack, for Silvercrest's strength. Theron's expression hardened. You broke a fated bond to chase power. You conspired against Shadowfang's Alpha and plotted his death. And now your lies have been bared beneath the moonlight. Another Alpha, Era of Shadowfang, the elder who once doubted me, stepped forward. I saw the light myself, she said. The moon marked her and condemned him. No wolf can fake that blessing. No mortal hand can forge such truth. The room buzzed with whispers, words like traitor, liar, blasphemer. I said nothing. I didn't need to. My silence spoke louder than his pleas. Callan turned toward me at last, desperation hollowing his eyes. Marin, please, tell them I'm not evil. Tell them I just lost my way. I met his gaze. You didn't lose your way, Callan. You sold it. His breath hitched. Theron's voice boomed. By the authority of the Alpha's council, you are stripped of title and territory. You are exiled from Silvercrest territory, never again to bear the mark of leadership or command. Gasps, cries, then silence. The guard stepped forward. Chains of silver clinked as they bound his wrists. Callan looked up at me, trembling. Please, Marin, don't let them... But I turned away. Justice had already spoken. Chapter 20, The Bride's Wrath. The ceremony of condemnation should have ended there, but fate was not done with him. Lyra rose from her throne, her golden gown dragging behind her like sunlight turning to ash. Her eyes, once filled with admiration, burned now with betrayal. Beta Dre, she said, her voice clear and sharp. You courted me with falsehoods. You promised me loyalty, devotion, and honor. Yet all I see before me is a coward who hides behind excuses. He tried to reach her. Lyra, please. She stepped back, revulsion twisting her features. You called her a mistake. You used her. And for what? To gain my father's approval? He stammered. I thought I could love you. Love? Her voice rose, trembling with fury. You don't love. You consume. And when there's nothing left, you move on. Her hand went to her neck, where the mating mark still glowed faintly, proof of the bond they'd just sealed. She pressed her palm to it, and with a sharp breath, tore it away, a flash of blood and light. The room gasped. The mark vanished, seared into nothingness. I reject you, she said. Her voice shook, but it did not break. Not as a mate, not as a beta, not as anything. Callan crumpled. His knees hit the marble with a hollow thud. Lyra, please, don't leave me alone. You made that choice years ago, she whispered. The guards moved closer, but he ignored them. His eyes sought me again, wild and broken. Marin, please, you were always kind. Forgive me. For a moment, the world seemed to still. I saw flashes. The night he'd held me under the stars, the warmth of his hand, the sweetness of lies that once tasted like forever. And then I remembered the moment he let go. My voice was soft, but final. Kindness isn't weakness, Callan. But forgiveness is earned, not begged for. His head bowed, his shoulders shook. And for the first time, I realized that what I felt for him was not hate. It was release. Chapter 21, The Moon's Justice. The hall emptied one by one until only the condemned remained. Callan on his knees, me standing in the pale silver glow, and the moon above us, full and watchful. It was quiet. So quiet I could hear his breath hitch, the faint scrape of chains against marble. When I looked at him, I saw not the man who ruined me, but the lesson he became. He lifted his head weakly. Why? He whispered. Why would the moon give you everything and leave me with nothing? I stepped closer, the hem of my gown whispering across the floor. Because the moon never makes mistakes. His eyes filled with tears, the last of a pride that had finally drowned itself. The guards dragged him toward the gates. The great doors opened, revealing the cold expanse beyond, the wilderness he once mocked me for fleeing into. He looked back one last time. I did not. As he vanished into the darkness, a beam of light broke through the skylight, bathing me in silver fire. The chains of my past, unseen but always there, melted away in that light. I closed my eyes. The moon hummed, not in words, but in feeling. Peace, justice, closure. Orion appeared beside me, his hand warm around mine. It's over, he said. I nodded. No, I whispered. It's beginning. Because the world had just witnessed what true power was, not vengeance, but grace. And grace, once awakened, never dies. The moonlight deepened until the hall shimmered like water, and the whispers of every pack carried one truth into the night. The Omega he rejected became the Luna, the moon herself crowned. Chapter 22. Return to Shadowfang. The ride home felt different this time. The road that once carried my broken body through the wraith forest now welcomed me back in triumph. Mist drifted low across the path, glowing faintly under the moon's silver hue, as though the forest itself bowed in quiet respect. Orion rode beside me, his hand brushing mine every so often, wordless but full of meaning. Behind us, our sons rode tall and proud, their laughter spilling through the trees like sunlight after a long storm. When Shadowfang's gates appeared through the fog, the guards didn't just bow, they howled. One by one, wolves filled the courtyard, their voices rising into the night until the mountain itself seemed to echo our return. "Luna Marin!" they cried. "Our Luna has come home!" I dismounted slowly, the weight of everything, grief, victory, love, settling into my bones like peace finally earned. Era stepped forward, tears gleaming in her eyes. "The moon was right about you," she whispered. "You were never meant to bow to any alpha. You were meant to walk beside one." I smiled faintly. Beside, yes, but sometimes ahead, when he's too stubborn to listen. Orion chuckled under his breath, his arm sliding around my waist. "She's not wrong," he murmured. That night, we stood on the balcony overlooking the valley. Below, fires burned bright, celebration fires that chased away old shadows. Trade emissaries from Silvercrest had already begun to arrive, hesitant but hopeful. Even Theron himself sent word. "Peace begins with your name." The past, once jagged as glass, now felt smooth in my palms. I'd carried the scars long enough to see how they caught the light. Orion's voice broke the silence. "Do you regret returning?" I turned to him. "No. I think the moon needed me to walk through the fire, to learn that mercy burns brighter than revenge." He pressed his forehead to mine. "And what now, my Luna?" "Now," I said softly, "we build a world where no Omega ever has to run again." Chapter 23. The Summit of Peace. 5 years later, the world had changed. The Alpha Summit, once a council of rivalry and pride, now stood beneath banners of silver and black, the sigils of Shadowfang and Silvercrest intertwined. When I entered the great hall, the room fell into reverent silence. Not fear, not awe, something gentler. Respect. The chair at the head of the table, once reserved for the eldest Alpha, was offered to me instead. Theron himself rose, bowing low. "Luna Marin Vale," he said. "You have done what centuries of bloodshed could not. You united us through grace, not conquest." My sons sat behind me, young men now, strong and noble, each carrying a piece of both their parents in them. When I looked at them, I saw the moon's promise fulfilled. "Peace," I said, my voice carrying through the hall, "is not the absence of strength. It's the mastery of it. It's choosing compassion when power tempts us otherwise." Era nodded. "The rejected Luna who healed the world," she whispered, and the words rippled through the hall until they became a chant. "Luna Marin Vale, healer of packs, chosen of the moon." Music rose. The crowd lifted their heads. I felt tears gather not from sorrow but from something deeper, gratitude. When the summit ended, Orion found me alone by the window, staring out at the endless stretch of land that was once divided by hate. Now, trade roads connected them like veins through a single living body. He slipped his arms around me, chin resting on my shoulder. "They'll write your name in history, you know." "Then I hope," I said quietly, "they remember the woman, not the legend." He smiled against my skin. "I'll remind them every day." Chapter 24. The Legend of the Moon's Chosen Years. Later, on a quiet night, I found myself standing once again beneath the same moon that had watched me fall and rise. The air smelled of rain and wild lavender. The world had gone still, as if waiting for something sacred. From the cliffs beyond Shadowfang, I could see the faint lights of Silvercrest glowing peacefully in the distance. Once, that sight had burned like salt in a wound. Now, it felt like a song. soft, distant, but harmonious. Somewhere out there, I knew Callan lived, exiled, broken, but alive. And sometimes, when the wind carried the sound of wolves howling, I wondered if he still listened. That night, the moonlight shimmered brighter than usual. A whisper brushed my thoughts, gentle, maternal, infinite. "You have fulfilled the circle, child." I closed my eyes, feeling tears slip down my cheeks. "Thank you," I whispered, "for turning my heartbreak into destiny." Behind me, Orion appeared, wrapping me in his arms. "Talking to the moon again?" "She listens better than you do," I teased. He laughed softly, his breath warm against my neck. "Then tell her this. She can keep her destiny. You're mine." The twins, our sons, emerged from the path below, laughing as they chased each other in their wolf forms, silver fur flashing under the night sky. I smiled through the tears. "Ours," I whispered. "Always ours." The moon dipped lower, its light spilling over us like a benediction. And as I stood there, Alpha's mate, healer, mother, Luna, legend, I understood the truth that had taken me years to find. The moon never punishes. She transforms. Because every heartbreak, every wound, every rejection was never meant to end me. It was meant to remake me. And in that moment, beneath her eternal light, I finally felt whole.